there's a whole lot of talk about this in Street Fighter V, right? Robbery. Do you need Robbery to win? How strong are V-Triggers like G, for example, or Laura, some of the best V-Triggers in the game. And I'll tell you what, bro, in my opinion, I think that V-Triggers are overblown in some way, as far as like people over exaggerate about the effectiveness of these V-Triggers, and about they underestimate what we can do about these things. Look, this is something I just learned in life in general, bro. In all honesty, I'm about to get on my Dr. Rob thing. Just for 2 seconds, I get on my little soapbox. I remember reading somewhere while I was like in college that like when you feel like you don't control the world around you, then at that point it's harder for you to make moves and to succeed in life, right? You have to accept responsibility for what's going on as much as you can. And when you do that, you'll realize, like, the blinders will come off and you'll say, it was my fault that I just got robbed right here. Actually, a prime example, I was just in top 4 of Evo, and I had to play up against Smug, and it was Karen versus G. Now, the hardest part of that matchup is actually the neutral game, but my strategy worked out beautifully there, and I landed here, I did well. But 6 separate rounds, I was so salty. 6 separate rounds, my man made a comeback after popping V-Trigger. So naturally, what I could think is, oh man, like the game, V-Trigger, so on and so forth. But no, I'll give you what happened. I literally had in my notes, Brian, before I even played against him, like I had it in my notes going into it, that Smug is like the only G player that does a whole lot of light punch or something directly into dash low. Yes, he's the only G player that does that all the time. And I wrote in my notes that I need to, that's a part of my V-Trigger strategy. Something that 99% of players probably don't have a new strategy for once V-Trigger is popped for these comeback characters. I did have a strategy, but in the moment, I would block too late or my mind would be a millisecond off consistently. But that is my fault. And there's countless other examples of this right here, Brian. So I don't think, I don't think you need Robbery. And 2, I think it's very possible to stop it from happening to you consistently.
I'm glad you brought up the Evo example, because that was going to be my counterpoint, was to rub some salt in the wound.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Rip
goodness.
That victory from your hands.
I was destroying you. I was smashing you, bro. I swear I was.
You were nooching him up, he popped the V-Trigger, jab, buffer to low, and then you got clipped every single time. I'm not gonna lie, that was a gap in the gameplay though. But you put it out correctly, right? Like, you made the mistake. Obviously, it's a horrible position to be in, and I think what happens is people have to play mental gymnastics with Street Fighter V a lot. They shouldn't, but they kind of have to, because like they're winning, and then the momentum shifts against them very fast, and then they lose. However, I feel like it's 2021. Like, it's time to realize that you've had time to lab these V-Triggers, to lab these characters, and most of the time, people just do not know what's happening when the V-Triggers pops. They blatantly lack matchup knowledge, and they blame the game. You know how many times I've had to explain how Balrog's V-Trigger works? Most good players generally do not get robbed by Rog's V-Trigger anymore. It's rare to happen. I wish it still happened. You know how much fun I was having in Season 1 and Season 2, just popping V-Trigger and going high-low all day, and people were just dying left and right? It was hilarious. But eventually people figured out that there's a system behind it where you can actually check the highs, block the lows, you can OS block, you can jab interrupt, the frame data changes the longer the rush punches go on. Like, there's certain things that you can use, certain bits of knowledge that you can use to sway the advantage back into your favor, even in the face of great odds. So I just feel like most of the time people are just lacking matchup knowledge. However, there are moments you just have to guess. That's part of the game, man. That's part of the game. And the thing is, people conflate guessing with just pure coin flipping, and that's never the case.
But where does the guessing typically come from, though, bro? Only the activations point.
The activation point. But even then, people don't realize that it's not a coin flip, right? A coin flip is 50-50 odds. You need to weigh the risk reward of the options. There's a reason why we're playing a fighting game, and why we're not just playing like a tabletop card game, right? There's a reason why it's a live action experience where we're calculating risk reward, and we're thinking about the psychology of the player and the speed at which we're playing and the events that happened before and what might happen after. There's something more to a 50-50 than a 50-50, and people don't want to accept that. They just don't. And then to say that the game boils down to that in 2021 is ridiculous. It's just blatantly not true. And it's not how people win. You look at people who win, that's not how they win. Take any champion of Street Fighter V. Pick one.
Yeah, look.
Maybe Idom?
And that's the prime example people would say as far as Robbery. Because the best in the world at Robbery is easily Idom, right? But the thing is, that's just the flashy part, man. Like, my man's neutral. What has changed? I will even say this. Idom, you know, we were people who were training with Idom extensively over the past few years before he got to this point that he's at now. And his Robbery, I would say, has been this strong. What he improved at tremendously for the next leap is his neutral game has improved tremendously. His strategy, you know, just look at his poison, for example. Look how tough it is to jump over one of the normals. Like, his reads on the ground are so phenomenal. And also just going to the fact that, you know, what you brought up, that 50-50s are not actually literally 50-50s. Why is Idom better at getting V-Trigger comebacks with Laura if these are just 50-50s in the end of the day? All that's happening is he's doing some type of clap or something like that, and now you have to make a read. I have to do the same thing against every Laura player. But some players, like Idom, like Itabashi, they're better at it than others. But until you accept that premise in the first place, then, you know, it's going to be hard to improve. Also, as far as the guessing part, a lot of V-Triggers at least don't even put you in guessing situations outside of the activation. I would say that, like, Cammy is one of the characters where it's like a bit of an exception, because she gets V-Trigger, and then once she drills, she's plus on block when she does the air spiral or whatever. However, like with Karen, for example, 9 times out of 10 I can V-reversal. It won't knock her down, but she can't punish me, so she has to block it, and I'm just -2, but she's far away now, and it stopped the pressure. That's matchup knowledge. Going up against G, he does the full screen EX dash low in the V-Trigger activation. If you V-reversal, he can't command grab, he can't neutral jump punish it. The only thing he can do is a throw. That's what he has to do in order to punish you in that spot.
Regular grab.
A regular grab. And at that point, he gets no Oki off of that, he gets nothing off of that. So what? V-reversal will take the throw there in that spot. Or, you know, you could just at least introduce that, and now if you want to take more risk and play a bit more of a mind game, you can do so. But there's so many little details like that people are unaware of, and that's why people are thinking like, oh, V-Trigger. And outside of that, bro, like all of this, we've done an amazing, I would say, like, before I even go to my next point on it, we already brought up like Idom, right? But even if you want to look at someone like that, let's look at Takedo though, for example. Let's look at who else? Punk, for example. Punk is using Karen, right? Now she can rob people though. Not give me twisted. But even though she's not a V-Trigger character,
without V-Trigger,
she does it. Yeah, but that's not what's Robbery. We say Robbery. It's kind of like an FGC term, but yeah, it's usually not.
It's bad.
Robbery.
It's bad. You gotta understand that when people speak, they're not saying directly what they mean. Like, these are all charged and loaded terms, and that's why they're fun to debate and bring up, because there's no real definition of it, right? When you say you were robbed, in your head that means that I had an advantage, I was winning. In my mind, I feel like I'm the better player and I was outplaying them, and then I lost in a circumstance which is not justified based on my arbitrary definition of what should be right in the world. But at the end of the day, you lost, right? And the best players, like you just brought up, they're not robbing people, man. You look at the way these players are winning. They win at a consistent level, at a consistent fashion. And the one that we bring up is maybe Idom, because his character is suited to be explosive. But let me tell you something. If you got robbed by Idom, that's an honor, because you must be great to get him to the point where he can even have a V-Trigger. Yeah, that's true. You know how many good players go up against great players like Idom and don't even get that opportunity to get robbed? Like, let's just remember the levels of skill we're talking about here. Like, Idom, yeah, he robs people here and there. He has some V-Trigger comebacks, but he's still doing that against the best players. And it's a character trait. Laura is a grappler. She's meant to put people in a blender and then up the ante and get that momentum going. But other characters don't do that, bro.
Like,
they want you to lose on their terms. They want you to go out silently. That's what they want.
And
don't take the W from my hands.
Balance-wise, bro, like, okay, let's say Laura, just for example, or characters like that are known to rob people, have strong V-Triggers and stuff. There's usually a reason for that. they usually lack in some other area. Like, yes, if Zangief, I remember Problem X told me something so real back in the day. Like, we were talking and he was like, bro, if I get hit by EX command grab from Zangief in tournament, he said, I don't waste my mental energy on what happens next. Like, of course he's gonna calculate, I'm sure. I would imagine that's implied. You're gonna
pick your decision and live with it. And you already messed up.
Cause you already messed up, bro. You messed up. That's your fault. You got command grab. So it's not the game's fault if the player makes the right read every time from that. That's how it goes. Zangief walks like a snail. Laura's buttons aren't great. So on and so forth. So that is why they have these things. So overall, what this comes down to is none other than excuses and bruised egos. Look, if you get robbed all the time, you ass. That's all that there is to it, bro. If you get robbed all the time, you just not that good. I can tell you that factually from experience.
Get a new lock in the safe or something, because you got to figure out how to secure these wins. If your door is unlocked and people are walking and stomping on your couch and taking your W's, you got to figure out a way to patch that,
bro.
And you know what?
We all used to be trash, bro, and make excuses and stuff like that, man. And that's just where you happen to be right now. I don't care if you've been playing fighting games for a year, 6 months, or 20 years. At this game right now, you trash if you get robbed all the time. That's just the truth of the matter.